All right, hey, welcome to, what episode is it?
9.
9, 10, 8,
Nine.
4, 3. So episode
Kayla says 9, okay.
9, Kayla said 9. Episode 9 of Kuhlture Keepers. So we're going to be talking about our friend Andrew that was just in here.
Yeah, it was a good episode. I was waiting to hear his story, and I think he brought a lot of good stuff. But before we get into it, don't forget, like, share, subscribe. Remember, God dang it. Always, sorry. Remember, like, share, subscribe right here. Anyways.
Let's talk about that really quick. So this has happened a couple times.
That's a good idea.
Right?
Yeah,
so your brain, and I learned this from, his name is Bob Nicole. He wrote a book called Remember the Ice. And check out the book. It's really cool. He's since passed away, which is really sad. But in the book, he talks about your words and brains, and we've heard this from psychologists and stuff, your brains don't understand negative stuff. Mm-hmm. So, for example, everyone in the audience is listening to this, I want you to do not think about an elephant. How'd that work for you? Right?
Yeah.
You're going to think about an elephant. You can't. So if you say don't forget, all your brain is going to remember is forget. And subconsciously, likely you'll forget. So his book talked about the ice. So he went into a convenience store, and he would go in there and he would get his stuff, and he was supposed to get ice, and he would go up and he would see the sign right at the register that said, "Don't forget the ice." And he would do his stuff, he'd buy stuff, he'd walk outside and go, "Doggone it, I forgot the ice." And so he would go down the street, and because the ice machine was right outside down the street, and he would go buy ice. So one day he came into this gas station, and he told the guy at the register, he said, "Hey, do you mind if I change your sign?" He goes, "What?" He says, "How's your ice sales?" He said, "Well, they're not really good. It seems like everyone walks out of here and goes down there and grabs ice because they got an ice machine right out on the curb, and I don't have room on the curb." And he says, "I don't think that's your problem. So what do you want to do with my sign?" And he says, "Well, I just want to change the words." So he put on the sign, "Remember the ice." Then he put that up, posted it up there, and then he left, and 3 weeks later, he completely forgot he had done that, and he came back to the store, and the guy came out and gave him a hug. He says, "You're not going to believe this. My ice sales went up 500%.
Holy cow.
Or something like that, 400 or 500, whatever it was. A lot. It went up a lot, and he said it's just crazy. And you see those people on the streets that'll have signs that'll say something, blind or whatever. And if you change some words, how subconsciously that works.
Yeah.
So when we say "don't forget," people will likely forget instead of saying "remember." So we try to correct each other on things like that, and that's what
that's good to bring up. So anyways,
back to Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew, that's great. But I think the one glaring thing that came out of that was vulnerability.
Vulnerability for sure.
So
yeah, and he was not a vulnerable person,
not at
all. And so that's the word that came out, which was really cool.
Yeah, because I remember. He had been here for a little bit on the team, but not super long when I came. And I even remember going home and be like, September, man, like he is negative.
Yeah.
And I remember that. But then I also remember a time not that long after I was there where you and him were talking in our old office in the conference room. And I needed you for something. And I knocked on the glass. And he's like, "Yeah, come in." And I asked the question. But then I was like, "You want me to leave?" He's like, "Nah, you can stay, you can hear." And then he was talking, I can't even remember what story he was talking about, but he definitely was like, he got vulnerable in that.
Yeah.
And it was, that threw me off because of what I had seen up until that point. So there was like a little brick removed, I guess, or a chip of the wall that was removed that day, I guess. And in watching it slowly go, and I know he can't pinpoint to a time, but I would actually say, if I were to look back at it, it was Big Sky.
Oh yeah, without question. It was like a total the wall change. Fell over.
Yeah, exactly. Like there were chips coming, but then it was like somebody bulldozed the wall at that point.
Yeah.
So that was something that I saw.
So and you might wonder, why did you hire this guy with that negative attitude? Because he did. As a whole, people he didn't know, it seemed. Discerners can see very negative.
Yeah. High
certainty type people can seem negative because they're standoffish and that trust is there, that vulnerability is not there, or trust is not there either. We knew him, so he was an independent with us for a year and a half or something, and he trusted Marcy and I, so he would come in and talk to us, and so we really appreciated his demeanor and who he was in his heart, but he wouldn't let anybody else know that, and nor was he going to. Mm-hmm. He had no intentions of, and we're like, we're gonna break that wall down. Yeah. And so that was kind of the fun thing to break his vulnerability down. And A lot of people are that way. So don't give up on those that are standoffish. Lean in. One of my coaches always says, when someone's really having a bad day, don't lean back, lean in.
Sure.
Lean in and ask them, is there anything I can help you with? Even if they say no, at least they know you cared enough to ask.
Sure.
Or they should, right? And at some point they might say, you know what, maybe you can help me. I'm having this, that, or the other, and whatnot.
Well, and I think he's a great example that when you finally do break that wall, what kind of, cheerleader or proponent that he becomes, because he became so protective then of the team at that point. Like, and he constantly says, there's family and then there's you guys, like there's immediate family and you. Like, I consider it all in one group for me. When he was so standoffish at one point, but once that wall came down, it was down. And
that same conference, I had a broker out of Seattle, Mike. Mike came up to me and he says, and I've known Mike for a while, for a few years, and we're very protective of each other as well. And he came up to me and he says, Mark, I got to talk to you about Andrew. I'm like, oh, boy. What happened? What did he do? And he says, no. He says, I literally think that guy would take a bullet for you. I'm like, whoa, I wasn't expecting to hear that. What happened? Tell me more, right? So Mike was just telling me that they're in a conference and he's more protective over Marcy, and it's like, do not mess with Marcy around Andrew, because he will find you. And it's funny, and he's very vocal about the people that he cares about. He is like all in, take care of, and very protective, which is pretty cool. And he is that way with our family. So he does, during our interview process, all of our people get asked questions to these new interviewees. And one of the last questions he asked is, what do you think about having friends at work? And some people might say, well, I don't know, because they don't know. But you can't just discount them because they say, oh, I don't think it's a good idea, because they just don't know.
Yeah.
And these last two is kind of funny. What do you think of friends at work? Oh, I think it'd be great. It's nice being able to hang out with these guys at work. It'd be nice to actually know them. And then his next question is, will you be my friend? Yeah. Which I think is the funniest thing, but then he just looks at him.
But he's dead serious.
Like, he's dead serious.
He's dead serious.
And could you imagine him saying that when when you met him?
Right, no, right?
Like,
no, there's no way. No, yeah. I think, too, something to point out is along the lines of vulnerability is the way it got chipped down for him, I think, was because he was surrounded by people who were being vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge piece, is being able to be vulnerable here with each other, and that will break down. Because it's little by little, it was almost a non-trust for him.
Yeah.
And as he saw the reactions of everyone else and what they were getting when they were being vulnerable, it was like, all right, it's a little bit more real. It's a little bit more real.
And you don't get trust, you have to earn trust, right? So no one's going to be vulnerable with a complete stranger, right? Well, unless the very look at me type of high personalities. But you have to earn that trust, and once you get that trust and that wall breaks down and it becomes reciprocal, and you realize they're not going to hurt you about it, you grow. The growth of him and the growth of some of the other people, once they broke those walls down and became more vulnerable, has been huge, because they're not bottled up with all this disdain inside. They let it out and they grow.
Right.
And we talk about, one of the words of our company a couple of years ago was focus. You truly get what you focus on. Mm-hmm. You focus on negativity, you're going to get negativity, guaranteed. You focus on positive, you're going to get positive. You might get a little negative in there, but keep focusing on the positive, and that stuff gets pushed away. And your whiteboard will then be cleaned off of a lot of those negative things and keep it more positive. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else to add to the vulnerability piece, or?
I've always been vulnerable, so it's very easy for a personality like mine to just basically say, hey, I'm having a bad day and this is why.
Yeah.
And, it's not, oh, woe is me. It's, I got to get it off my chest because I don't want to bottle it up. My personality, God blessed me with that personality, just let that crap go, and who cares? I'm not getting shot at. I say that a lot.
Yeah.
I was a Marine, am a Marine, been shot at. It's not a good feeling. So when we're doing other things, we're not getting shot. It's so true. We're not getting shot out. It's okay.
Yeah.
We'll get past this.
It's actually funny because I don't have a problem either, and I can't even specifically say why. I just figure I might as well tell the truth. I'm not there's or why hide who I am? It is just who I am. I can't do anything about that, and I don't know where that necessarily comes from. I don't know if that's because of in my past experiences that made me like that or whatever. So
were you like that the first time you worked for us? Were you vulnerable right away?
Yeah.
Then too?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm having a hard time remembering getting them mixed up.
Yeah, no, I've never really had. Maybe when I was a kid, I don't know. I've never really had a problem.
So you were blessed with that too.
I've never understood why not, but that's just because of, I guess how I was made or raised or whatever it is. Like, you're just gonna get me, but it's not that. I am who I am. Attitude. It's just who I am. So yeah, I don't quite. I can empathize with them. I can understand where they're coming from, but I have never had that feeling. So I don't really.
Well, I think I think we've proven it can be a learned trait. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You don't have to have it. It can be a learned trait, but there has to be trust there. You got to trust someone.
I would assume it all is learned. It is just when it was learned. I can't tell you when it was learned for me, but I can't say that I was born with that.
Sure.
So I just had an experience in my past where I was just like, you know what? I just am who I am, kind of thing. I don't know.
Taught by the sailor man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but anyways,
awesome.
I think biggest piece, obviously, be vulnerable. Let your people be vulnerable. So.
And don't persecute them for it. That's the big thing, right? I mean, if they're going to open up to you, be receptive and listen. You may not need to say a thing, but just listen.
Absolutely.
That's a big thing. Nail in the head. Watch the video on YouTube. Yeah. Nail in the head.
Oh, yeah,
sometimes they just want you to listen.
Yeah.
It's a very funny video. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Remember, like, share, subscribe. I got it. See, we'll see you next time. We have a special guest coming from outside.
Very special guest.
Yes.
He'll be coming with us in one of the future episodes. I'm excited for that. Most of you will know who this person is. Has a huge thing to give us for teamwork. Has nothing to do with real estate. Has something to do with a much bigger, much more money sport than what we're in. But that's going to be fun. I'm excited to interview him. He's a good friend of mine, and we'll have some fun with him.
Thank you.